Canadian travelers are sending a message loud and clear. They're done with the United States, for now. Once the largest group of international visitors to America, millions of Canadians are suddenly canceling vacations, crossing off bucket list destinations, and even giving up thousands of dollars in deposits just to avoid traveling south of the border. This boycott, which erupted in early 2025, is no small protest. It's a movement that could shake the U.S. tourism industry to its core. Why is this happening? Tensions between Washington and Ottawa have reached new heights. Steep tariffs on Canadian goods, fiery political rhetoric, including claims that Canada is little more than America's 51st state, and a growing wave of nationalism have combined to fuel a consumer rebellion. Canadians aren't just avoiding American products on store shelves, they're now avoiding American soil altogether. And the timing couldn't be worse. Airlines, hotels, and entire states depend heavily on Canadian tourists to survive, especially in winter. In today's video, we're diving deep into the 6 U.S. states being hit the hardest by this unprecedented boycott. From Florida's beaches to the glittering lights of Las Vegas, the numbers are staggering, and they only tell part of the story. Stay tuned, because by the end of this video, you'll understand why experts say this could be just the beginning of a much larger collapse. And before we get started, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you never miss important updates like this one. Number 1. Florida. Florida has always been at the top of the list for Canadian travelers. Every winter, hundreds of thousands of Canadians, often called snowbirds, pack up and fly south to enjoy the sunshine, golf courses, and beaches that the state is famous for. But in early 2025, that tradition was broken in a way nobody expected. Canadian travel to Florida has plummeted by more than 30%, a staggering drop for a state that relies so heavily on tourism. The boycott isn't just talk. Travel agencies across Canada are reporting mass cancellations, even from loyal visitors who have returned to Florida year after year. Some families have walked away from deposits worth thousands of dollars simply to take a stand. Airlines have also been forced to react, cutting capacity on Canada to Florida routes by nearly 10%. For an industry that depends on full flights during peak season, that's a painful adjustment. Local businesses are already sounding the alarm. From bustling Orlando theme parks to seaside restaurants in Miami, the decline in Canadian visitors means fewer hotel bookings, fewer meals served, and ultimately fewer jobs. Economists warn that if the trend continues into the winter of 2025 and beyond, Florida could be facing multi-billion-dollar losses in tourism revenue. For a state that has long marketed itself as Canada's second home, this sudden shift feels like a shockwave. And many Floridians are now asking the same question Canadians are. Is this boycott just a short-term protest or the beginning of a long-term change? Number 2. Arizona. For decades, Arizona has been one of the most attractive destinations for Canadians seeking winter warmth without the chaos of Florida. Its golf courses, hiking trails, and retirement communities have turned Phoenix, Tucson, and Scottsdale into hotspots for Canadian visitors, especially during the cold months back home. But in early 2025, that steady flow of tourists began drying up, and the state is now seeing some of its sharpest declines in years. Airlines have already reported major drops in bookings between Canada and Arizona. Several carriers cut flights on these routes by nearly 10%, reflecting the lack of demand. Hotels and resorts, once packed with Canadians escaping the snow, are now struggling to fill rooms. Golf resorts in particular have been hit hard, an industry that thrives on long-stay visitors who often spend weeks, even months, enjoying the Arizona sun. Economists estimate that Arizona's tourism industry could lose hundreds of millions of dollars this year alone. Beyond hotels and airlines, local restaurants, car rental companies, and retail shops all depend on Canadian spending. For many small businesses in Phoenix and Tucson, those cross-border customers aren't just tourists, they're lifelines. And unlike other international visitors, Canadians tend to return year after year, creating a reliable cycle of spending. That cycle has now been broken, replaced by a powerful boycott fueled by political tensions. If the trend continues, Arizona may find itself forced to reinvent its winter tourism model just to stay afloat. Number 3. Nevada, Las Vegas. Few places symbolize tourism in the United States like Las Vegas, and Canadians have always been a huge part of that story. Whether it's for weekend getaways, concerts, or the bright lights of the Strip, millions of Canadians have made Nevada a top travel choice. But in 2025, that pipeline is drying up at a speed that has casino operators and hotel owners deeply concerned. The numbers are startling. Canadian visitor counts to Las Vegas have dropped by 18%, marking 6 consecutive months of decline. This is not a seasonal dip or a minor setback. It's a clear reflection of the boycott movement that has swept across Canada. And while the visitors who still come are reportedly spending a little more per trip, the shrinking headcount is impossible to ignore. Empty hotel rooms, half-filled shows, and quieter casino floors all point to a structural problem that no amount of flashy advertising can fix. For Nevada, this is especially worrying because Las Vegas doesn't just rely on tourism. It is tourism. Entire industries, from taxi services to wedding chapels, depend on steady foot traffic. Economists warn that the decline in Canadian tourists could translate into billions of dollars in lost revenue if the trend persists. Even more concerning is the sentiment behind the boycott. Polls in Canada show that nearly 7 out of 10 citizens are committed to avoiding travel to the United States this year. That means Las Vegas may not just be losing visitors temporarily, it could be losing a loyal base for the long haul. Number 4. New York. New York has always been one of the most visited states for Canadians, from the bright lights of New York City to the border towns that welcome day trippers every weekend. But in 2025, that steady stream of Canadian visitors is drying up fast, and the impact is being felt everywhere from Manhattan skyscrapers to small shops in Buffalo. Air Canada has reported a 7% drop in passenger traffic overall, with bookings on Canada-New York routes falling by double digits. For a city like New York, where tourism is a major economic engine, those numbers translate into enormous losses. Analysts predict that the city could lose around 800,000 international visitors this year, and more than half of those would normally come from Canada. That absence could mean a staggering $4 billion hit to the local economy. Hotels, restaurants, Broadway shows, and retailers all stand to lose. The pain doesn't stop in the city. Across the border in upstate New York, towns like Buffalo and Niagara Falls are reporting dramatic drops in Canadian traffic. In July alone, cross-border car trips from Canada fell by nearly 37%. These day trippers, who once crossed for a quick shopping spree or a weekend getaway, are now staying home or spending their money elsewhere. For New York, the boycott feels like a double blow. Fewer long-haul tourists in the city, and fewer weekend visitors in the border towns. And the question on everyone's mind is whether this is just a temporary protest or the beginning of a new era in cross-border travel. Number 5. California. California has always been a dream destination for Canadians. From the sunny beaches of Los Angeles to the vineyards of Napa Valley and the desert escapes of Palm Springs, it has long drawn millions of Canadian tourists each year. But in 2025, that picture has changed dramatically. The boycott has reached the Golden State, and the ripple effects are already being felt in nearly every corner of its tourism industry. Reports show that Canadian travel to California is down sharply, mirroring the overall nationwide decline of around 26% in U.S.-bound air traffic from Canada. What makes this even more striking is that many of these canceled trips were high-value vacations, luxury stays in Palm Springs, theme park trips in Anaheim, or extended family visits along the coast. Travel agents say some Canadians have even forfeited deposits worth thousands of dollars just to avoid spending their holidays in the United States. In response, California hotels and tourism operators have tried to lure Canadians back with aggressive discounts and special promotions. Some resorts have even offered Canada-friendly packages to soften the political sting. But so far, the results are limited, and occupancy rates in tourist hubs remain weaker than expected. For California, the loss of Canadian visitors is especially painful because they are consistent, high-spending, and loyal. Their absence leaves a gap that European or Asian travelers alone can't fully replace. If the boycott continues, California could be staring at billions in lost revenue, and its once reliable northern neighbor may no longer be the dependable travel partner it used to be. Number 6. Northeastern border states. For generations, quick cross-border trips have been a staple of life for Canadians. A Saturday drive from Toronto to Buffalo for shopping, a family outing to Niagara Falls on the U.S. side, or a weekend ski trip to Vermont or Maine. These traditions have fueled the economies of countless border towns. But in 2025, those patterns have been disrupted like never before. The boycott has caused short trips by car to collapse. In July alone, cross-border vehicle traffic from Canada into the United States fell by nearly 37%. That means thousands of empty hotel rooms, shuttered restaurants, and small businesses left scrambling to replace a customer base that was once guaranteed. Places like Buffalo, which depended heavily on Canadian day trippers, have been among the hardest hit. Tourism boards in Vermont, Maine, and upstate New York have tried to pivot by focusing more on American travelers. Yet for many of these small communities, Canadians weren't just visitors. They were repeat customers who came back month after month, year after year. Without them, the steady cycle of spending that local economies relied upon has been broken. The ripple effect is already visible. Some shop owners in Buffalo report sales dropping by half compared to the same time last year. Hotel owners in Maine say bookings from Canadian families are down dramatically, even during peak summer weeks. For these border states, the boycott feels deeply personal. It isn't just about tourism dollars. It's about the disappearance of a long-standing cross-border relationship that many thought would never change. From Florida's beaches to the border towns of the Northeast, the Canadian boycott is leaving deep marks on America's tourism industry. What began in early 2025 as a political protest has grown into a movement with real economic consequences. Billions in lost revenue, thousands of jobs at risk, and communities rethinking their future. The big question now is whether this is just a temporary freeze or the beginning of a long-term shift in North American travel. If you found this video informative, don't forget to like, subscribe,